In Nigeria, the issue of youth involvement in cultism has become a pressing social concern affecting educational institutions, communities, and the nation at large. Originally introduced as harmless fraternity in universities, cult groups have metamorphosed into violent organizations linked to criminal activities, drug abuse, and bloody rivalries. Poverty, unemployment, peer pressure, and the quest for power has driven many young people into these groups, leading to a cycle of violence and uncertainty. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on another interesting episode. I am Fatima Musa, and this is Youth Connect. Now let's go on a quick break, and when we return, get to meet my guest, and then we go into the discussion proper after this break. Thank you so much for joining us on Youth Connect, coming to you from our studios here in Abuja. Now joining me in the studio is Ofido Goodness. She's an agriculturist. Thank you so much, Goodness, for joining us.
Thank you.
And we have Nwafor Prosper Chinedu. He's a data analyst. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for joining us. Well, we're discussing cultism, especially in Nigeria. I mean, it's something that is a pressing concern globally, but it may not be as bad or as rampant as it is in Nigeria. What do you think pushes young people into cultism?
Well, cultism and all that surrounds it, what pushes young people into it, for me, I believe there's this sense of belonging young people have. Young people tend to be very naive, tend to be very scared, you know, they are young, they don't know much. So there's this crave to be among their peers. There's this crave for sense of belonging. And so because of that, they tend to always, you know, get along with other people. They tend to always move along with their fellow peer group people. And because of that, they can be intimidated or brought into bad influences. Another thing I think is fear. Most of the young people, as they are growing up, there's this fear in them. They are so afraid because they don't know what the future looks like. They are so afraid because they don't know what comes for them. There's this uncertainty that is very, very clear and obvious. And because of that, they are scared. And so they are always wanting to find security. They want to join, they want to be among, you know, they want to have this sense of belonging. And because of that, they can be easily swayed into it. And how it comes is they are doing what many of their friends are not doing. Many of their friends are doing what they are not doing. And so they want to be part of that. They want to join into that. They want to enter that. And before you know it, they are lured into it. So I think basically sense of belonging and fear are one of the major causes of youth going into cultism.
I mean, Nwafor mentioned peer pressure. How does peer pressure contribute to, you know, the whole overall how does peer pressure contribute to cultism amongst Nigerian youth? I mean, you just heard what Nwafor just said.
Yeah, I think peer pressure ranks at the topmost of it. How it contributes to the issue at hand right now is, you know, youths, they like to feel among. So imagine you and your friends, you know, you feel they are more privileged than you. You feel lost, and you feel they have something that you want, and they're probably making you feel less of yourself because of what they have. That's one of the things that make youths, you know, the pressure from their friends. Oh, come on, you can have this too. Oh, you can be like us, you know. So that pushes youths. They just want to be involved. I want to feel among. I want to be like my friends. I mean, it's very unnecessary, but that's one of the major drives, because
so
these are people that
what they are doing. They just want to join because
they just
want to be among.
And these are people they relate with on a daily basis. So it's almost difficult to, you know, separate them and their peers.
So, but you wanted to say
something? Just to add to what she was saying, there's this feeling of rejection. Okay, when young people in a group, okay, they are together, and maybe there are 10 of them, and 8 of them are doing a particular thing, 9 of them are doing a particular thing, and maybe one is left out. The one that is left out feels rejected.
Feel like the odd.
Feels as if the odd man out. He feels like he's the odd man out. I remember when I was in school those days. I remember what happened? Someone was trying to lure me into joining a cultist group, and they put pressure on me. Actually, they put pressure on me. What happened was that they came to me with a promise, with an offer. Okay, we want to make you this, we want to make you that. Okay, everybody is on this cadre, everybody is doing this. We want to make you this particular person only if you give in. And the funny thing is that they won't come to you like it's a cultist association you want to join. No,
they don't brand it like that.
They won't brand it like that. They just come to you telling you, you just join, is an association, you know, we tend to fend for ourselves, be your brother's keeper. They even quote Bible for some of them. Yeah, be your brother's keeper, we want to look out for ourselves, just an association. And they make it to seem as harmless as possible. And I remember that guy when I was in year one. Until you joined. That guy when I was in year one, he kept on telling me, okay, I want to make you the class rep of this class, I want you to come, you know, you just look like a nice person, I want you to join. Underneath that promise is that particularly dreaded menace called cultism. Underneath it, because it's there. And how you will know is when you begin to have meetings with them, you begin to go out and they begin to lure you into the dark side of it. And by that time, the most scenario is that, or the most often case in the scenario is that it's actually difficult to come out from.
You're already deeply rooted.
Because at the end, your life will be threatened if you want to leave, and then certain things that you are not sure, you know, where you stand. But do you think cultism only is in universities, or it's just everywhere?
Nah, cultism, it has transcended the walls of the universities. You know, with it started so harmless. Then the political infiltration is difficult to separate politics from cultism, because political infiltration made the whole system, you know, they started as wanting to fight for the rights of people. So political infiltration made that those politicians used money as a bait for those students, and now they began to see money. They began to see things, they began to give them things that they wanted, that they could not afford. And then that changed the whole narrative. So it has moved beyond the university. It is now in every sector. I don't think there's any sector that you mentioned that cultism is not in existence. It's just that it's not as pronounced as it used to be before. You know, before you could easily tell, okay, I remember when I got into school, they're like, oh, don't put on this color. Don't put on dark color.
I remember that happened to us too in school. Don't put red, don't put black, because there are certain colors.
But right now, I don't think that happens. It's been a while I heard someone say, oh, don't use that color. So it's now under the carpet. And being under the carpet makes it difficult for you to identify. So they're everywhere, but you can't tell just by seeing the person.
On their faces.
It's not written on their faces.
But how does poverty and unemployment adds up to this menace that we are dealing with?
Now, you see, unemployment and poverty are basic causes of why people go into cultism. And the reason is simple. They are offering them what they cannot provide for themselves. And most of the time, permit me to say, is cheap promise. Because, for example, this is a young man, for example, he cannot fend his way into school, he cannot see himself through school, and then he has some gang of friends who he moves around with in the area, and they're like, you just join us and everything will be sorted out. So they can even see him through school, they can even provide for him. Where the money is coming from, he doesn't know, but what he will begin to see later on is that after some time, he will be called to, oh, let's go out, you know, let's go out for somewhere, and before you know it, he begins to see some traces and trends of violence. But by that time, it's difficult because he feels he's doing them a favor. These guys have paid your fees. These guys have helped you out financially, in quote, and then you feel you just need to be loyal to them. When people don't have jobs, when they are idle, there's this popular saying we always talk about, that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. It's actually more terrible than that, because when someone is idle, he's not doing anything. It simply means he has no purpose, he has no agenda, he has no goal.
Direction.
He's just idle. What happens there is that he can easily fall for anything. He can easily be manipulated. And so it's very, very dangerous for a country to leave youths unemployed. Very dangerous.
So, but do you think, cultism has affected the educational system? Because I feel like a lot of parents nowadays may have this fear of letting their children go to the universities without having someone to watch over them. So do you think that has also added to what some parents are facing in terms of letting their children go to some schools?
Okay, at this point, if you ask me, I would say it's just a mindset thing. Because like I mentioned earlier, right now in schools it's not as pronounced as it used to be. In fact, the case we have, one of the vices that we have causing a challenge right now is cybercrime. So people parents no longer worry so much about cultism because it looks like it's been taken care of to some extent now under the carpet. So although parents are scared of their children falling into bad hands, being in bad company, since they are not there, no parental guidance at that point, and they can do anything they like. That's why I think most parents won't send their children to more like private schools where they can get that guidance. Even if they are not there, they feel safe. They feel they are more at rest when they know that there's some level of guidance their children have, even in universities, that prevents them from getting involved in such kind of lives.
Nwafor, what do you think are the consequences of cultism, amongst youths and even the society at large?
You see, just while we're on the show, the picture on the screen, those guys that we are behind the police.
I mean, they are the youth.
Thank you very much. It caught my attention because looking at them, I began to think, what's their future? And that's what I want to talk about. The consequence of it is that they almost will have no future. Because what's the end goal? Okay, they join a sect, an association, a group of people. They go out sometimes, they go into violence, people pay them, they go and cause political unrest, go to communities, cause mayhem. What is the future looking like? Because cultism is like an association they enter that has no coming out. It has no coming out. It's like a lifelong thing. It's like once they enter, they have entered. Because if you want to come out, like you said earlier, their lives are threatened because coming out means exposing. Coming out means you revealing. And so in order to hide the decadence, in order to hide the menace, there's no coming out. The gates are closed. And even if you try to come out, you are in hiding for the rest of your life. The question in my mind is, for the consequence aspect, what is the future of those people? They literally have no future at all. That's the basic problem. And when they have no future, the nation is at risk because once young people's future are being threatened, a nation is being threatened. The future of young people is actually the future of the nation. So the future of these young ones who enter into this madness is actually the basic consequence. Because number one, the consequence for me is even more on the players, the guys who go with the guns, the cutlass, and go on the street, than even the big boys who stay from their palaces
and give orders.
Give orders. The sponsors, that's the word. Those ones could easily get away with anything because they have financial resource at their disposal.
That they are not seen.
They are not seen, so you don't need.
Their identities are hidden.
And that brings me to another point of future. We're already seeing those faces now. How can those ones now tomorrow want to become something important tomorrow? How can those ones now, their faces are already on social media for wrongdoing,
and the internet never forgets.
I mean, at the end they'll just be jailed and then they'll serve their punishments, come back and then go back to that same society again, and then probably still create a menace again, and
nobody is proud of a kind of past like that. Nobody is proud of it. Nobody is proud of a kind of past that, I was the one. Imagine a cultist who was, for example, now the Abuja bomb some years ago. Imagine a cultist who was used to spearhead that kind of attack comes out to say, I was the one who did that, and then now everything is changed. I want to be this. It's going to be very.
I mean, you just said this. It just reminded me of the reintegration for the repentant bandits. That that they're going to rehab. They are now going back to the society. I mean, how would the people you've abused you've you know, put some suffering,
So
and you know that image. How can you clear it? But then let's go on a quick break, and when we return, we continue this discussion. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us on Youth Connect, coming to you live from our studios here in Abuja. I mean, before we went on break, we were talking about, you know, how the reintegration of bandits and going back into the society. But do you think the government has done enough to curb this menace?
Well, whether the government has done enough, the truth of the matter is the government really can't do much as we think they can do. That's the truth of the matter. Now, the government has its own role to play. Make the schools, for example, which is the major venue where all these things take place. Make the institutions habitable, free from all these vices, which is employ security details and all other machinery to make sure that the school remains a school. Okay, when we say it is a school, people go there to learn. Let them go there to learn. But one area that I want to highlight that the government has not really been doing is in the area of mentorship, because the government needs to, you know, reintegrate in the educational sector that attention and awareness of mentorship. Teachers need to do more than teaching. Okay, principals, heads of department, subject teachers need to do more than teaching just the theoretical, you know, basic knowledge of the subject matter. They need to go into mentorship. They need to call these students and not just talk about school, talk about life, talk about preferences, talk about their future, talk about what they want to go into, talk about their associations, know who their friends are, and do as much as you can to make sure that you curb them from such friends that have such negative tendencies. So I feel the government, through the educational sector, needs to do more on mentorship. The civil society needs to go on a very public awareness. People need to be aware. Young people need to be sensitized. Forums need to be organized. Conferences need to be organized. People need to learn. People need to be aware. People need to come together and know that this path is not the right path to go on. Mentorship, because the average young person today doesn't want to be accountable to anybody. The average young man today wants freedom. The average young lady today wants freedom. Nobody wants to answer yes sir to anybody. But that's the major part of our lives as young people, because we need that mentorship. Because the older generation have passed through that road before. They know what is there. They know what they have passed through. So we need mentorship, and the government needs to do that, needs to encourage that, create that environment where mentorship can come in, create forums where people can meet, you know, people who have gone ahead of them, people who have gone ahead of them, and so that they can learn from them. Because the average young person today is being mentored by social media.
I mean, you just reminded me of last week. We just had this conversation on youth and mentorship, and I asked this particular question simply because you just brought up the mentorship issue. And I asked, are all mentors good mentors? Because even in mentors, there are bad ones.
Yeah, of course. There are bad mentors. I would love to highlight something before I address that. So he was speaking about governments taking initiative and creating platforms where youths can be mentored. Now, I went to a government school, and in my government school, we had the guidance and counselors. Yeah, so I think the government put that in place, a unit in government schools.
Yes, just have someone older.
The funny thing is, the only interaction we had with the guidance and counselors units was when we were entering school. And all they did was, what course do you want to do? Are you sure you can do that? Okay, you have biology, chemistry, or you go to science class. And that was the last. I mean,
until you graduated, there was no any section
there was no section. So I want to highlight that people should be able to take initiative. Now, the government has been able to put that unit in place. The people that have been employed, what are they doing? They need to take initiative. You don't expect the government to tell you they pay you for that job. Are you doing your job? So people get employed. Most times we hear that governments they set up a system, they set up this and that, but the people being employed do not do anything about their roles. And
I mean,
a lot of people easily point their hands to the government, but do not think about themselves. They do not point them to themselves, to call themselves to order, to do what they're supposed to do. And change must begin from us. We must be able to do things to curb menace around us, to change the things that we do not appreciate around us. So I wanted to be able to highlight that.
But what other, or should I say, what are the possible solutions or measures do you think youth themselves can actually take to discourage themselves from being part of this kind of cultism, especially?
You see, the last question you asked, and she was able to throw some light into it. You mentioned something. You said, are all mentors good mentors? Now, when I talked about mentorship in trying to answer whether the government has done enough or not, I started by saying there's little the government can do, and that's true because actually the first point of education begins from the home. It begins from families. It begins from the society. Okay, the people, gone are the days whereby some years ago, everybody is being trained by everybody. In society, your parents are not the ones that train you.
You don't belong to your parents.
It's not because you can do something outside and they will beat you. And when you go home, your parents will also beat you.
Some will even follow you to your house and report you to your parents. And like, you did well.
Because there was this dignity placed on family name. Family name. You don't do that because you're from this family. Don't give our family a bad name. Stuff like that. That's what was happening then. And so, coming to that part of mentor, it starts from the home. Before they even get to the school, there's an education they get from the home. And so, at that point, they need to do their job. The parents, the religious institutions, they go to the mosques, they go to church. Even before they go on social media, they first come from the home. What do you tell them? You don't just assume they know and leave them all to themselves. From the home, you actually need to talk to them. And so going from there, you need to also understand mentorship. They're actually bad mentors. They are bad mentors and they are good mentors. Because
even some parents can be bad mentors.
I'm telling you, some parents can be bad mentors actually. That's the truth. The painful truth. Because imagine children, for example, who grew up seeing their parents fighting.
I mean, you just reminded me again of a scenario that happened way back when a child misbehaved and then the society, let's say the community people or the neighbors tried to discipline and then the mother stood up for the child. But then there are some parents that will tell you, oh yeah, I will stand up for my child, but behind the closed doors, I'll deal with him. But then they'll fight the people right there and then. But do you think the media has played a vital role in discouraging and, promoting the cultism generally?
The media. I
mean, we are just talking about it now. It's a way of promoting and discouraging it. So do you think it has played a role?
Right now, in our society, talking about the media, you would want to think first social media. I mean, what's happening right now is people are being even discouraged to spend more time on social media, because right now what's happening on social media, people showing off. There's a lot of show off right now on social media. So people are encouraged, don't take everything you see on social media with a pinch of salt. Don't take it because there are no real people out there. So you need to be able to, the media has, I don't even know how to put it, but there has to be like some sort of restrictions, maybe policies that would reduce some kind of content to go on.
So are you trying to say that social media has actually promoted cultism rather than reducing it?
It's a public space.
Is that what you're saying?
Because right now you see there's thuggery being displayed on social media.
You see,
and people want to now become like these dogs because they feel like that's how I can be popular. When I become popular, that's how I can get money. So social media kind of encourage this kind of vice that we are talking about.
All right. You see, on social media, for example, There are videos that people who went to make Yahoo money.
Oh yes,
G
we
money.
see a lot of that
You
on
see
social media.
them with eating raw chicken. Like, it's so funny actually. You see them doing those and singing all these songs, Dorime and everything. You see them doing that. I remember there was a time that Facebook, I don't know if Facebook still does
There
that.
were lots of restrictions.
There's this restriction on the kind of videos you can post. They call it community guideline or something like that. You don't post a certain kind of video, or they restrict it, or they try to you know, close the view. So if you want to view it, you have to maybe answer some question. Okay, yes, and they will inform you this video. I think YouTube too does that. There's a kind of restriction. Okay, these videos are for kids. The main point is that social media is a big space that cannot just be controlled by one person.
I remember a while back, you know, there were these bandits or is it terrorists that were flaunting money
on social
that they kidnapped, and you know, it went viral. It sparked a discussion.
So those kind of things can influence youth,
people to want to be part of it,
because there are no policies that stands against this kind of thing. So we've never seen that someone that did this particular thing got penalized.
You know, I wanted to ask you people quickly before we go, do you think cultism can also start from the home? Can youth inherit cultism from their folks?
Yeah,
you see, when you ask this question about the solution for it, I talked about the home, okay? And the truth of the matter is that it all begins from the home. Because even if the father or the mother did not belong to a cult, the question is, did you teach? Because failure or ignorance to even bring them to that enlightenment, failure or ignorance to try to tell them this is wrong, is actually a permission on your end.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I wish this discussion can just continue. I didn't want it to end. You know, it's interesting, and having the both of you be part of this conversation means a lot. Thank you so much, Nwafor, for taking out your time, and Goodness, thank you so much for joining. Well, we have come to the end of this episode of Youth Connect this week. Join us again next week for another interesting episode. And cultism is not one thing that, you know, people should actually look up to. Find what to do. Be self-employed. You know, encourage other people to also look for something that can keep them busy. Well, I leave you with that. I'm Fatima Musa. Bye for now.